if you can believe it, the Ja Morant situation gets even worse. But to totally understand what is going on, I'll give you a high level. But first, I'm going to show you what Adam Silver just said at a recent press conference that really puts Ja Morant in a bad spot.
In terms of the timing, we've uncovered a fair amount of additional information. We made the decision it would be unfair to these players and these teams in the middle of the series to announce the results of that investigation, and my sense now is that shortly after the conclusion of the finals.
More information? All I'm gonna say is that is just the worst case thing for Ja Morant. The fact that Adam Silver is waiting until after the NBA Finals to drop this information is probably the worst thing that could have happened for Morant, because there's no doubt in my mind, Adam Silver has some real information. But to have an understanding of how we got here, we would need to go back to the beginning, which was like over a year ago. So obviously there's probably more things that happened, but this was like one of the first documented things that people were like, ooh, that was really weird, a little out of character, but like, oh, he doesn't have a sample size or anything, so it's like, it's just a one-off situation. On May 14, 2022, Ja Morant clapped back to a troll on Twitter because that troll called him whipped. Then Morant responded in now a deleted tweet saying, it's free to see how hollows feel. And what social media and the internet and everyone is saying that he was allegedly referring to shooting the user with a hollow point bullet. So yeah, then on July 22nd, this is where things started really heating up. The Washington Post reported on two incidents. Number one was, according to an employee of a Memphis area foot action store, Morant's mother was displeased with her service, so she called her son. Morant and 8 or 9 friends arrived to the store and threatened the employee, while he hid in the back room nearly for an hour. However, Morant was not listed as a suspect, and his mother was listed as unknown on the police report. Then number two, the same exact day, Ja Morant threatened the head of security at the Memphis area mall, and during the altercation causing the security guard to file a police report, the head of security alleged a member of Morant's group shoved him in the head, but there was no arrest made. Then this is where things started becoming a little bit more mainstream, but like not super out there yet. 4 days later, on July 26, 2023, Morant allegedly punched a 14-year-old boy in the head during a pickup basketball game at Morant's house, leaving a large knot on the boy's head, according to the Washington Post. Then additionally, the Washington Post stated the boy told police that Morant went inside of his house, came back out with a weapon visible in his waistband, and his hand was on the weapon while threatening the young man. Then a few months later, on September 22nd, 2022, this one was actually pretty under the radar, and I feel like no one really talked about this one, but like, it was there. TMZ reported that Ja, his family, and friends stormed into a high school volleyball game after a verbal altercation between his sister and another teenager. Officers tried to block the group from entering the student section, but one of Morant's friends pushed past. Some witnesses alleged that his friend slapped a phone out of the teenager's hand and threatened to beat him. Morant defended the incident, saying he was checking on his sister's safety. And now, this is where things really started being like mainstream. So Ja Morant and the Grizzlies are balling up. They're actually playing pretty well early in the year, feeling themselves. They're, pretty high in the standings. Everything's going really well. Then he sits down with Malika Andrews of ESPN and says this.
Who do you look at around the league as you're studying and say, we're going to have to run through them?
Celtics.
No one in the West?
Nah, I'm fine in the West.
Which ultimately was actually one of the worst things he said, because everyone kept talking about this. Everyone. And everyone started painting him out like a villain at this point. Not even for any things he did in the past or all these things I mentioned. It was just the fact that he was like cocky or something. And this cut would go viral. Like viral. Everyone knew about it. And everyone was dragging him, saying like, oh, if you don't go to the NBA Finals against the Celtics, we're going to come after you. Everyone was talking about it, all this stuff. And ultimately would be put in his face later in the storyline. But for now, let's keep moving forward. On January 20th, 2023, during a game between the Los Angeles Lakers, Ja Morant's dad, T. Morant, got into a verbal altercation with NFL Hall of Famer and former Fox Sports host Shannon Sharpe. Shannon Sharpe said after the incident, the Grizzlies players Dylan Brooks and Ja Morant approached him. Next, T. Morant came, and he obviously didn't want no problems, but Sharpe said he wanted everything they had. Then on January 29th, this is where we're starting to get, okay, what is going on with Ja Morant? The Athletic reported members of the Indiana Pacers alleged a red laser was pointed at them in their team bus from a car containing Morant and his friends after a game between the Grizzlies and Pacers. Witnesses alleged the laser came from a gun. During the game, at least one of Morant's friends got into a verbal altercation with players, and who Morant's friend was Devontae Pack. and he was actually removed from the stadium, and ultimately was actually banned from going to games. I don't know how long it was, but he was banned for at least for 1 year. NBA spokesman Mike Bass told the Washington Post, though they substantiated the post-game situation arose was confrontational, based on interviews and evidence gathered, the NBA could not corroborate that any individual threatened others with a weapon. Next, on March 4th, 2023, this would officially be the beginning of the end for Ja Morant. Morant would go on an Instagram Live, recorded himself waving a weapon in a Colorado strip club, and the NBA would suspend Ja Morant for 8 games. And everyone was saying it was going to be much worse, like a whole season suspension, all this type of stuff. But ultimately, Adam Silver met with Ja Morant. They felt really good about the conversation. I think it really actually was that Adam Silver believed what Ja was telling him. He went to rehab for a week or something, and he only got an 8-game suspension. Nothing crazy actually for all the stuff I just mentioned. And this is where everyone was started giving their opinions on the situation, starting with Shannon Sharp.
With Ja, we realized that he's not a stud. Ja is a really good basketball player. Ja did everything he could to lift himself and his family out of this type of environment and to get away from this. And for some reason, he wants to surround himself with these type of people. Why?
And several other people gave their thoughts, and it was all the same exact tone. What is Ja Morant doing? Why does he want to throw all this away? Then he goes to sit down with Jalen Rose and says, basically, this is not him. And all this narrative is not true, and he needs to prove that this is not him.
It's not who I am. I don't condone it or any type of violence, but I take, full responsibility, for my actions. Made a, bad mistake, but, in the future, I'm gonna show everybody who Ja really is, what I'm about, change this narrative.
Then the Grizzlies and Ja Morant faced off against the Lakers in the first round, get bounced, and then referring to that cut I said before, it was really bad. He just got dragged talking about, we don't care about anyone in the Celtics, we don't care about anyone in the West, but he lost in the first round to the Lakers, who were not that great. And right after the series lost, he was asked about that interview.
Ja, the I'm fine in the West comment's going to get thrown back in your face at this point.
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't care. I said it. I deal with it. So.
Then right after all this, Ja Morant was ultimately not picked for an All-NBA team because of his off-court antics, which made him lose out on tens of millions of dollars. And you would think at this point, Ja Morant's done. He's just going to ride off into the sunset, get some good off-season work, come back strong, be ready for the next season. Nope. It gets worse. He does it again, and he gets caught flashing another weapon on another Instagram Live. And almost immediately after, the Grizzlies suspend Morant, and the team released a statement on Twitter saying that he's suspended from all team activities pending league review. Then Adam Silver went on ESPN and said this.
I at least was left with the sense that he was taking this incredibly seriously. So honestly, I was shocked when I saw this weekend that video.
If you ask me, it genuinely looks like Adam Silver was hurt here. He was definitely hurt. I don't know how to say it any other way. But the consensus at that time was that it was probably going to be a 25 to 40 game suspension. But with Adam Silver's most recent comments,
We've uncovered a fair amount of additional information.
It's probably going to be a lot worse, maybe a full season. And then I'm going to leave it off with this video from Stephen A. Smith. It's Stephen A. Smith. We don't really exactly know because, it's Stephen A. Smith. But this is pretty serious stuff that he talks about on the Rich Eisen show.
And I can tell you that people within the NBA community are not just concerned about Ja Morant playing basketball. They're concerned about whether or not he's going to be alive in 5 years.
Ja Morant has a real situation, and I can't tell you I know how to help him or even give him advice because obviously we're very different. But at the end of the day, Ja, get off the internet, lay low, and just take whatever fine and suspension you get and just come back stronger next year. That's my best advice for him right now. I'm actually rooting for this guy at this point because it's downright sad.